Shavua Tov v'Kutvach. This week we concluded the book of Shmais of Exodus, and the whole second half centered around the building of the Mishkan. A Mishkan is this traveling sanctuary which accompanied the Jewish people as they went through the desert, and it was later replaced by the temple. So the feature verse in many ways which encapsulates the whole construction of the Mishkan and the result of the Mishkan is V'asuli Mishkan, make for me a sanctuary, V'shechanti b'soicha, and I will dwell amongst them. But literally the word b'soicham can also mean within them. So when the Jewish people, the children of Israel, made a sanctuary, the result was that God would dwell within each and every person, within the soul of each and every person. Now, if we speak about what the function of the sanctuary was, both in the temporary Mishkan and later the temple, which was the grand climax of the whole relationship between the Jewish people and God and the interaction, and many mitzvahs are dependent on the temple. What was the function of this physical structure? Nachmanides, the Ramban, says that the same shechinah, this level of holiness, of divine presence that was perceived or that came down at the time of the giving of the Torah, that repeated itself. It came back to the Jewish people with this construction of the Mishkan, and more specifically in the Holy of Holies, and even more specifically through the Ark of the Covenant. So what it did, this physical structure, is it attracted this high level of divine presence. Now, when we talk about this, you got to be careful, as Maimonides points out, that if you look at the verses, it says Malakol Aretz Kavaydai, that the whole world is filled of His glory. So whether we're talking about your backyard, or whether we're talking about Jerusalem, or whether we're talking about a temple or a grocery store, God's everywhere. So what does it mean that the shechinah came down within the walls of this physical structure? So there's a lot of intricate discussion, beautiful imagery that analyzes or explains what it means to say that the shechinah is found in one physical location more than another. And without getting into the details, we can simplify it and say that that physical place worked more as a transmitter, that it wasn't like anything special, even though everything, it was like a code, everything had to be built with the measurements and the curtains and tapestries, and everything had to be perfect, but that was just like a code. The actual building, once that was completed, functioned more like a transmitter, a conduit to get that level of holiness to the human being, to the Jewish people. So this has a broader application. When we talk about a sanctuary, whether it's going to your local synagogue or a holy place or an area, or saying that the air of Israel is fit for prophecy, it doesn't mean that the physical building or the physical space has anything particular about it. It means that it somehow taps into and serves as a place for good perception or reception of prophecy or the divine presence. So if we apply this more personally to our lives, we have an instruction, even though we have our shuls and we have grand sanctuaries and we have the building of the third temple coming, even though that's all true, we have to construct a personal sanctuary. A personal sanctuary is a place where you feel most comfortable, that you put, let's say, some holy books, you put a pushka, a charity box, you sanctify that corner of your world, of your place, of your house or your room, and you designate that this is the place where I'm going to go for good reception. And in a way, this also explains the idea, it's a broader concept of when people go to a shul, they have set places. So on the surface, you could say, well, what's the purpose of having a designated place to sit or a designated room to pray? So psychologically, it's just like that's his locker. That's his place to put his book. It's just like you get in a good state of mind. On a deeper level, what you actually do is you take an area in the physical world and you say, I'm going to construct this in such a way that I'm going to welcome good thoughts. I'm going to invite the divine presence. And that is, in a way, an obligation for each and every person to do, to make within your house or your room or your place a personal sanctuary. That's an instruction that we can learn from the grand sanctuary. Have a great